you've noticed other teachers in your building are consistently leaving at contract time and they hardly ever take any work home with them. In fact, most of the time they don't even have a teacher bag. And you're starting to wonder, how can you make this happen too? Well, leaving at contract time isn't magic, and it all comes down to systems. If you've ever stayed late grading and planning and you're looking to leave at contract time this year, here are three systems you should implement to make it happen. So, with that being said, let's dive in.
Hey, teacher bestie. My name's Helena, and I'm the creator of the Present Teacher podcast. I'm a first year teacher coach, and in this podcast, you are going to learn everything from simple, actionable classroom management, social emotional learning, and teacher wellness strategies. You know that impact you want to make in the classroom? Well, we're going to make it happen here.
Before I tell you the three systems you're going to need in order to leave at contract time, I want to dive in a little bit to my personal story on leaving consistently at contract time. So, for those of you that may not know me, hi, my name's Helena. I'm the creator of the Present Teacher. And about 8 years ago now, I was in my first year of teaching and I reached burnout. So, when I first started teaching, I was the teacher who was consistently staying late and coming in early. I would come into work about 5 a.m. and I wouldn't leave till about 6 p.m. And most weekends I worked and most weeknights. So until one day when it was 3:15 p.m. and I was pulling up to my house 10 minutes after contract time had ended because I was only 10 minutes from the school. I burst into tears because for the first time an entire week I had gone and I didn't stay late once. And I wasn't behind either. What it looked like for me is I had the next week planned and prepped, ready to go, and I had enough time and space to make adjustments and look at areas I needed to reteach as needed. My grades were caught up. I had graded everything from that week already and gave it back to my students. No more huge piles of papers to grade before report cards are due. I had my weekly newsletter that I send to families done, printed, and ready to go out for the next week. And during this time, I'm going to be honest, I almost felt guilty because I felt like I was cheating. I felt like in order to be a good teacher, you had to work hard and you had to burn out and you had to work all this extra time. But it was in this moment I realized that being a good teacher isn't defined by how much you got done that day, whether or not you finished your to-do list, whether you had 20 tasks on your to-do list or three tasks on your to-do list. Instead, my definition of a good teacher is how great of an impact I can make each day. And so it wasn't cheating to make teaching easier. It came down to systems and it was working smarter, not harder, so that I could show up and make a deeper impact with my students. Because when I was measuring my success based off of how many tasks I could get on my to-do list done, I wasn't making a deep impact. I wasn't feeling worthy. But when instead I focused on working smarter, not harder, and I only had one or two tasks on my to-do list, oftentimes I showed up with way more energy and made a way deeper impact with my students. And I was actually able to see them for who they were and which gaps they had. And I probably saw a lot of things that I would have missed otherwise. So that's my story, and that's why I created the Present Teacher, was to share online and to share with teachers how to make teaching easy. So with that being said, let's talk about the three systems you're going to need to leave at contract time in the new year. So the first one is lesson planning. So here's your shift. Instead of planning the day of, planning a couple days or a week ahead, you get to decide what this looks like for you. But I find that during those times when I would plan the morning of, prep the morning of, make copies for the day of, and do it very quickly and in a frantic state, my day would be frantic, and then the next day I would have to do it again and again. And it just felt like a never-ending hamster wheel where I would write the same tasks on my to-do list every day, and I never had room for a breath. So I'm not saying good teachers, plan 4 or 5 weeks out. You get to decide what that looks like for you. But coming up with some breathing room when it comes to your lesson planning, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's a couple hours, a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever it may be. So, how can we shift from planning the day of right now to planning a little bit ahead? So, before I would spend my entire prep working on everything, planning, prepping, grading, communication, messages, organizing all of it. My preps were just sporadic and chaotic. But then I decided that I'm going to pick one day a week where I'm going to focus on lesson planning. So for me, that was Mondays. Mondays were the days that I focused solely on lesson planning during my prep. And what would happen was I would plan for that following week. So this week's already planned that I'm in. I would plan for the next week. So if this is January, for example, I come in January 1st with this week already planned because I did that already. But during the prep for that Monday's prep, I'm planning the second week of January out. So when you do this, it makes it so you have some buffer in between and you can kind of tweak as you go. So the actionable step here is to set some time this week where you can batch plan instead of planning the day of. The second system you're going to want to look at if you want to leave at contract time this year is to look at your prepping. So the shift here is I was prepping the morning of. I would make lesson plans the morning of. I would prep the materials. I would frantically go to the printer and pray that there wasn't another teacher there, and I would print everything I needed for that day. And I would rush to my classroom and try to beat my kids before they got there. And I would come in frantic trying to set everything up before they walked in the door. And the shift was I went from that to now prepping, a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever it looked like for me ahead. So I had that breather room. I was no longer on that hamster wheel. I had everything ready to go. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't times that materials that I prepped I had to tweak. There were materials that I had to add, take away, whatever it may be. But to me, it was worth having that little buffer to breathe versus prepping the day of. So the before, like I said, I would prep the day of. Now that what I do is I picked another day out of the week. So Mondays, my prep was lesson planning. I chose the next day, which was Tuesdays, which were my prep days for prepping materials. So I would take all the lesson plans I wrote on the first day, and I would prep all the materials on the second day. Typically on Tuesdays, I get my coffee, I sit by the printer and I sip it and I organize all my papers and resources and paperclip them and file them and get them ready to go for the next week. Um, and that's how I spend my prep on Tuesdays. And it's way more relaxed and chill of a prep instead of going the morning of frantically hoping no one's using the printer, printing everything I need that day, trying to get it ready before my students need it that day, putting it somewhere on my desk so I lose it. So, actionable step for this is to set some time this week where you can batch prep instead of prepping the morning of. Prep a set amount of days or a set amount of class periods at a time instead of one at a time. The third area that you're going to want to work on in regards to systems is communication. So the shift here is I would spend every prep morning and afternoon before and after school responding to families, catching up on emails, responding to admin. Before, I was constantly behind on emails, and my inbox would have dozens of unread emails, and it felt like I was always trying to catch up. Now, I created a weekly newsletter where I tell families what to expect in the coming week. I tweak the Friday before and then I print it and prep it for Monday to send out. And in the first 15 minutes when I come in, I check my email and I get it down to zero. And then, same thing, when I leave at the end of the day, I check my email and I make sure my inbox is at zero. So, no more having dozens and dozens of unread emails, falling behind on PD. I have a system set in place that makes communication easy. And it's way more relaxed responding to families and admin now because I'm staying on top of it instead of getting overwhelmed. The actionable step here is to come up with a routine where you check your emails a couple times a day in short increments instead of dedicating every prep time to it. Picking one prep a week to batch. So for me, this was Wednesdays. If I fall behind on communication, Wednesdays are the day that, you know what, I fell behind on my emails. Today's the day that I catch up and get my inbox back to zero. Or today's the day that I write all my newsletters. Picking a day or one prep where you solely focus on that, and then having small increments. I like before and after school just to make sure that I'm staying on top of it. And again, I don't dedicate a lot of time to this, maybe 5 minutes at most, especially if I'm good at keeping up on it, to keep my inbox at zero. So that wraps up everything in regards to how to leave consistently at contract time and the three systems to focus on. So as a recap, we talked about my story, where I started before I was consistently leaving at contract time and where I am now. And then we talked about the three systems you're going to need to focus on in order to consistently leave at contract time. The first one we talked about was planning, then we talked about prepping, and then communication. If you found this week's content helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe and share it with the teacher who you feel needs this content. I would really appreciate it if we could get the word out to more teachers. And I would love if you could send me a DM. What was your favorite tip from this week's content? Let me know or put it in the comments. If you want more resources in regards to leaving at contract time, I have a couple different places you can go. The first one is I'm creating a book called That New Teacher Next Door. And this book is a book I've been creating where it walks you through all the strategies and systems I use in my classroom in order to consistently leave at contract time and be that teacher next door that you're wondering what her secret is. So if this is something you're interested in, I would love if you could check it out in the description. And then what I love about this is I'm actually giving a bonus training, a 3-day challenge to anyone who accesses the book. It's the Leave on Time Now challenge. Over 3 days, I'm going to go live and I'm going to give you all the strategies and all the tips to consistently leave at contract time. So make sure to check that out, and I can't wait to see you there. And if the training's already happened, don't worry, you'll get access to the replays. If you want more tips on how to maximize your time over a core prep, check out my free prep guide. This answers the top 10 questions I get in regards to how can you consistently leave at contract time, what can you focus on your prep, how can you manage teacher work-life balance. And the third place that I want to send you is if you want the templates, the how-tos, the challenges, the motivation to make teaching easy during those first couple of years, I would love it if you could check out the Present Teacher Circle. This is my community where I show you all the systems I use in my classroom. I show you my classroom management. What am I using in my classroom? What are the templates? I give you a 14-day classroom management challenge where I give you sizable, bite-sized, actionable steps you can take each day to make classroom management a breeze and have your students run the classroom without you. We talk about planning and prepping. How can we plan and prep a couple weeks out in advance? We talk about data and grading. How can we make it so we have a short turnaround when it comes to grading papers? Communication. How can we build a team mentality with our families and our admin? And then also an impact. How can we make a strong impact with our students? So definitely check that out. I would love to have you join us inside. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, remember we are stronger together, and I'll see you in the next one, Teacher Bestie. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that you were able to take away some value that will help you thrive inside and out of the classroom. It would mean the world to me if you could take 5 seconds right now and leave a review on this podcast. And if you found this podcast especially helpful, make sure to take a screenshot of this episode right now and tag me on your socials to let me know you're listening. As always, remember that we are stronger together with all the love in the world. Helena, aka the Present Teacher. See you next time, Teacher Bestie.